Hello and welcome to day 3 of 13 Days of Halloween. We've been reading stories from More Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, collected by Alvin Schwartz. A Weird Blue Light. Late one night in October 1864, a Confederate blockade runner slipped by some Union gunboats at the entrance to Galveston Bay in Texas and made it safely to port with its cargo of food and other necessities. Lewis Billings, the master of the small vessel, was ready to weigh anchor when he was startled by a shriek from one of the crew. A strange, old-fashioned schooner with a big black flag was rushing down at us, Billings later said. She was afire with a sort of weird, pale blue light that lighted up every nook and cranny of her. The crew was pulling at the ropes and doing other work, and they paid us no attention, didn't even glance our way. They all had ghastly, bleeding wounds, but their faces and eyes were those of dead men. The man who had shrieked had fallen to his knees, his teeth chattering as he gasped out a prayer. Overcoming my own terror that was chilling the very marrow of my bones, I rushed forward, shouting to the others as I ran. Suddenly the schooner vanished before my eyes. Some say that it was the ghost of Jean Lafitte's pirate ship, Pride, that sank off Galveston Island in the 1821 or 1822. She was seen again in 1892 in the same waters with the same crew. Somebody fell from aloft. I had signed on as an ordinary seaman on the Falls of Ettrick, a merchant ship bound for England. The first time I saw that ship, I knew her right away. She was the old Gertrude Spurshoe. I had sailed on her years before when she was painted brown and gold. Now she was painted black and carried a new name, but it was the same ship for sure. We had a pretty good crew for that voyage, except for one hard-looking ticket named McLaren. He was a pretty good seaman, but there was something about him I didn't trust. He was kind of secretive and kept to himself mostly. One day, somebody told him that I had worked on the old Gertrude. For some reason, he got all trembled over that. Then I catched him giving me all these ugly black looks as if he was itching to knife me in the back. I guess it had something to do with the Gertrude, but I didn't know what. Well, this one day, we was trying to work our way through a dripping black fog. You'd scarcely know we had all the lights on, and it was dead calm. There wasn't a breath of fresh air. The ship just lay there, wallowing in a trough, a rollin', going nowheres. I was standing my watch around midships, and McLaren was doing his trick at the wheel. The rest of the crew was scattered around one place and another. It was as quiet as it could be. Then, all at once, he let out a shriek that turns my blood cold, and he falls down in a faint. The second mate starts yelling that somebody was falling from aloft. Laying out there just forward of the wheel was someone or something, dressed in some oilskins, blood oozing out from underneath. The captain ran and fetched a big light from his cabin so we could see who it was. They kind of straightened him out to get a good look at his face. He was a big, ugly-looking devil, but nobody knew who he was or what he was doing up there. At least nobody was saying. When McLaren came from his faint, they tried to get something out of him. All he did was jabber away and keep rolling those big, wild-looking eyes of his. Everybody was getting more and more excited. We all wanted to heave the body overboard as quick as we could. There was something weird about it, as if it wasn't real. But the captain wasn't so sure about getting rid of it that way. "Could be a stowaway," he said. But the ship was so filled with lumber we were carrying, and there was no space where a living being could hide. For 3 weeks, which is how long we'd been out. Even if it was a stowaway, what was it doing aloft in such a dirty day? There was no reason for anyone to be up there. There was no seeing. Finally, The captain gave up and told us to heave him overboard. Then nobody would touch him. The mate ordered us to pick him up, but nobody made a move. Then he tried coaxing. That didn't do any good. Suddenly, that loony McLaren starts yelling, "I handled him once and I handled him again!" He picks up the body and staggers over to the railing with it. He's just about to throw it overboard when it wraps its two big long arms around him, and over they go together. Then on the way down, one of them starts laughing in a horrible way. The mates are yelling to launch a boat, but nobody would get into a boat, not on a night like that. We threw a couple of life preservers after them, but everybody knew they wouldn't help. So that was that. Or was it? The first chance I had to go home after that, I went right over to see old Captain Spurshoe, who was captain when the Gertrude was around. "Well," he says, "one trip those two outlandish men shipped aboard the Gertrude. One was McLaren, the other was a really big fella. The big one was always picking on McLaren and thumping him around. McLaren was always talking about how he'd get him back. Well, this wet, dirty night, the two of them were up there alone. The big one come flying down, killing himself deader than a herring. McLaren says the foot rope they were using somehow broke. But everybody who saw that rope knew she didn't give away on her own. She'd been cut through with a knife. After that, whenever we came to port, McLaren thought we were going to take him to the police and turn him in. He would get pretty scared. But we couldn't prove anything, so we didn't try. In the end, I guess the big fella took care of things on his own. If he was a ghost that came back, then that's what he was. If there be anything like ghosts. This has been day 3 of 13 Days of Halloween. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope we'll see you again tomorrow. Have a spookalicious evening. She was afire with a sort of weird, gosh, can't read. Somebody fell from aloft. I had signed on as an ordinary seaman on the Falls of Ettrick, a merchant ship bound for England. And I lost my page, dang it.